As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 10 of season 11, and today we're going to be going back to catch up with our favourite sassy arsehole, Loudermilk. Now, this is season 3, and this is the last one. And yeah, I've been a little bit critical of the first 3 episodes of this season. Again, it's my own personal preference. I'm not a fan of when they bring babies in. I think they just end up being same old kind of storylines. And yeah, it's just frustrating to watch a show as good as this have to go down that avenue. But other than that, it's been great. The core cast are amazing, and I really do laugh at this show out loud. I think it's so funny. I think the way that he acts around people is just anywhere else you get punched in the mouth. But yeah, I think what I like about him is that he's very straightforward. Like, there's some stuff that happens and you just think, this is fucking frustrating. You know, when he's just trying to buy a phone and, you know, the guy's trying to give him a hard sell, and it's just like, dude, I just want a phone. Just give me a bog standard run-of-the-mill phone. Like, I mean, okay, I've got, you know, a decent phone, but I understand why he'd get frustrated by that. It frustrates me when you just want to get in there, get your phone and get out. But this has been so much fun so far, and I cannot wait to get into it. So I think we should just do that. This is Loudermilk, season 3, episodes 4 to 7. Episode 4, Hit Me Baby One More Time. So, Loudermilk is in session. All the group is there, and Muggsy starts asking for some advice. It seems that his daughter, Cappy, which apparently stands for cappuccino, as well as his other daughter, Latte, and I know a few people are going to be laughing at my pronunciation of latte because they enjoy to do that when I am around them. But Muggsy is going to meet one of his daughters. Since the last episode, we know that he's kind of been having some issues lately with his kids. So he's not been able to see them because they've been ignoring his calls. So the advice was, just keep plugging away. Keep calling them, keep trying to talk to them, keep that contact going. If they choose not to, then that's on them. But it seems like one of his daughters has decided not to shut him out, and they're going to meet up. He starts asking for recommendations about where to go. Eventually, the group come up with a coffee place for him. However, before he goes to meet her, he ends up going golfing with the boys. But when they get there, they're all terrible at golf. This leads to an actual incident on the course. And this woman basically accuses them of being boorish because, well, they're calling these two women that are there things like Tuts and Babe and all that kind of shit. Like, real misogynistic bullshit. And so when they come into conflict with these women go off and get some police. They come back to the course, and when they actually catch up with Loudermilk and his crew, one of the women ends up striking one of the group with her golf club. And so they all end up in court. So while they're there, Tony, who's a real loudmouth, ends up shouting his mouth off again in front of this woman judge. And this judge ends up sending them to a gender sensitivity training course. Of course, it ends up being run by a woman, and of course, these guys end up just being themselves as per usual. They just cannot help themselves in spite of themselves. Loudermilk's always trying to rein them in, but the other three that are with him, including Muggsy and Tony, are just being awful to her, especially when she reveals that she's gay, and they essentially say, well, how would you know what it's like living with a man? You only live with a woman. It's stupid. Absolutely stupid. But before his first session, Muggsy actually goes to see his daughter. And she's played by Cassandra Naud, and I've seen her in a couple of things, and I think she's fucking great. And I really hope she's in more stuff soon, because she's got a very unique trait, and I think that it's incredible that she is able to show off her acting skills, and that this thing has kind of stopped holding her back. But I'll let you discover that for yourself. But during this meeting with his daughter, she suggests that maybe they could go shopping, and that he could help her pick out an outfit for an interview that she's got. Muggsy is really into this. He cannot wait. He's so chuffed that he's getting to spend time with his daughter because he thought that connection had gone. And so he basically bites her hand off. Then, because of the incident in court, he ends up taking this sensitivity course. Again, he's one of those people that it doesn't affect him, so it doesn't matter, and he just leaves it as it is, thinking that he's got this nailed, even though he quite clearly doesn't, and none of them really do. But then when he sees his daughter again, he asks about what's going on. She says that she's got a second interview and that she's really excited to do it. And once again, Muggsy goes back to this class and he isn't really picking up anything. He isn't learning a thing. The rest of the group are just as bad. They're just constantly talking out of term and just not taking the course seriously enough. But then the shoe drops for Muggsy, because he goes to see his daughter again, and when she says that she didn't get the job because she wasn't happy with the level of pay that they were going to try and pay her, her dad was like, well, you should have just took it. She explains why she didn't take it, and the fact that a male in her class from college has actually ended up getting the job and has got a 15% pay bump because he's a man. Her dad says, well, at least you weren't sexually harassed, so that's a bonus. Like, you're just giving that 15% to not get harassed, which is a fucking stupid thing to say. And she tells him as much. She tells him that he's a fucking idiot and that she has made a mistake coming here. She thought that he was going to support her, but actually what he said is just fucking stupid. And so this time when he goes back to the class, he actually starts to listen. And it seems like he's done a little bit of research, and it seems like he wants to learn now. He wants to learn and he wants to make the world better for women, because fuck, it certainly isn't right now. And so he has his sympathies for his daughter. Throughout the class, he shares the things that he's learned. And even when Tony starts chirping back at him and saying how he wants to have his own Me Too movement and all this bullshit, Muggsy's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, you need to fucking have a think about what's going on in this world, because you only care about you. And the problem is that because you only care about you, you aren't seeing what's going on around you. And the fact that society is broken and that women are expected to be paid less for the same job. Like, it's fucking abhorrent what we do in this world. We have millionaires and billionaires that are fucking just taking the piss right now, and we can't pay our own. This isn't a society anymore. It used to be, but it just doesn't feel like it should do anymore. Anyway, so Muggsy has realised his mistake, and he goes back to see his daughter, and this is the first time that we see Muggsy, well, first time for a long time, that he's been this vulnerable. I think in the first season when he met his daughter, he was pretty vulnerable then as well, but in this one, he breaks down. He tells his daughter that he's sorry and that he will learn and that he will continue to try, because that's all he can do, and he wants to strive to be better for them every day. Even his ex-wife can see that he wants to try and that he is genuinely trying to look after his kids, and probably her now. She can see that there's been a change in him, and that can only be a good thing, because it will mean that when he's raising his daughters, he will raise them right, and he will raise them to make sure that they can look after themselves, and that they've always got their dad at their back, which is exactly the way that the world should be. Anyway, rant over. Let's go on to the next episode. Episode 5, Just What I Needed. So, there's 3 main stories that go on in this episode, so I'll cover them as best I can. I think it's probably best to start with the easier one, which is about Muggsy. Now, Muggsy, once again, he's trying to reconnect with his kids. We saw an emotional episode last episode, and yeah, he is trying his best. But today is bring a parent to school day, or whatever it is. Show and tell your parent. I can't fucking remember. We never had to do it, so it seems ridiculous to me, but hey ho. But you have to bring your parent into school, and they will tell the kids about their job. So Muggsy goes in, and he's obviously nervous about this. He's told the group about how much he feels like he's going to embarrass his child, and that his child might lose respect for him. When he goes in, he ends up following a doctor. Now, this guy's been to school for 10 years, doing his doctorate. He's well respected within his field, and he's well known within that community. So he's a pretty big deal in terms of, well, he's a fucking doctor. And so Muggsy, who is an exterminator, then goes up next. He starts telling the kids about his job, and eventually, after all the questions are asked, they start to boo him. Muggsy starts to feel a little bit ashamed by the fact that he may have let his kid down, but his kid literally stands up and goes, "Don't fucking boo my dad," which is, well, shouldn't be saying that in school, kid, but fucking good on you. And so Muggsy can see that his kid is actually proud of him, and that the effort that he's making towards all his kids now is really starting to pay off. That he needs to be back in their lives, and this is another great start to being there for them. Claire, however, has started at college, and it seems that it's coming up on midterms, so they're about to have a big exam, and Claire ends up falling asleep in class. However, the boy next to her seems to have taken a shine to her, and when they leave the classroom, they're just chatting and flirting a little bit. However, when he asks her out on a date, she says, "Oh, fuck no," but the kid doesn't realise who's behind him, and it turns out that her mother has actually taken a course at the college as well to do creative writing. So she introduces herself to this new guy, and Claire is like, "We've not even gone on a date yet, and he's already met my mother." So yeah, she's a little bit all over the place with it, but he kind of takes it in his stride. Her mother hands her a story and says, "Would you be able to read through this? Because I'm a little bit nervous about handing it in, and I just want to make sure that it's read and that it's good enough to be actually handed into my course. I've never shared my writing with anyone, and I just want to make sure that it's okay." Claire says she'll take it and says, "Come back to me in a couple of days." Eventually, she gets Loudermilk to actually read this manuscript because she just doesn't have time with college work and potentially a date coming up. And so I think I'll continue with what happened to Loudermilk. So Ben has been to the dentist to get his wisdom teeth done. He's having them extracted, and so obviously he's going to be on a heavy dose of medication, and is going to need someone to come and look after him and basically take him home. And of course, Loudermilk is happy to do it. Well, he's never happy to do anything, but he's going to do it anyway. When he turns up at the dentist's, it turns out that Ben has had to have an extra dose of whatever they were giving him, whatever sedative it was. And when Loudermilk actually turns up, the receptionist basically says, "You weren't on call for him, blah, 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 blah." She's pissed off with him because he wasn't answering his calls and stuff. And Loudermilk's like, "Shit, what happened? Did he die?" Like, the way that she's saying it, like there was a massive emergency and all this, it sounds like he's died. However, he hasn't died. He's just really high. If you've seen the videos of people getting their wisdom teeth taken out or whatever it is from the dentist, so funny. And Ben is basically doing that. He comes home, he gets put in bed, and he's basically out of it for the next couple of hours. However, while Loudermilk's looking after him, Claire's mom turns up. Her and Loudermilk get to talk properly for the first time without Father Michael being there or Claire being there, and they actually seem to get along really well. Loudermilk confesses that he's the one who's been reading her story and that he's impressed with what it's like. At one point he actually reads it out loud to Ben, and it's an erotic story. So he's already got this running through his head when he bumps into her mum. She comes in, they have coffee, and they end up putting some music on. Of course, moments later, once he's turned on the charm a little bit and told her that her story's good and that he thinks she's got real potential and that it was a really sexy story in all fairness, she seems a little bit shocked by that statement, but when we hear him read it, we know it's a sexy story. It's about a woman getting taken into a bathroom stall and fucked. So it's a sexy story, alright. But she's happy for the compliments, and obviously her and her husband have split, so she jumps Loudermilk. They end up kissing on the sofa, and then the next thing, they're fucking on the sofa. Ben comes through and goes to the fridge. When he comes back out, he's like, what's going on? Like, he doesn't know where he is. He's still fucking high, and he heads off back to bed. Loudermilk thinks he's gotten away with it, but he just wants to make sure. So the next morning, he's sat and he's waiting for Ben to get up. Ben walks through to the kitchen and tells Loudermilk he just doesn't remember a thing from yesterday. He doesn't even remember how he got home. Like, he remembers sitting in the chair, he remembers the mask, and then, yeah, that was pretty much it. Like, there was nothing really else of any significance. And then, just as he's walking away, he goes, apart from you fucking Claire's mom. So, Ben now knows that Loudermilk has slept with Claire's mom, and that is going to cause such a rift between the two of them. But let's get back to Claire. So, Claire goes on this date with this guy, and she finally sees what it's like for an addict to be dating in the real world. Now, the last time she was dating someone, it was someone from the group, and yeah, it didn't really go very well. But now she's dating someone who is wanting to be a doctor and wanting to have this, amazing life and an amazing career and all that kind of shit. And she has obviously been addicted to meth, and she's an addict, and she is an alcoholic. And, she's been a stripper, and she's done things for money that she really shouldn't have done. She's lived a life. It's made her the person that she is, and that's stated to her later on in this episode by Felix. But when she actually speaks to this guy and he orders wine for the table, at first you think that she's going to take it, but she doesn't. She puts her hand in front of the glass and says, no, I can't. It's just, no, I can't. She explains what happened, and she explains that not only is she an alcoholic, she's also a drug user, or was a drug user. She's clean now, and she's been clean for a long time, but it's never easy. You've got to take every day at a time, and that's the problem. Because he is obviously wanting to experience college, university, whatever it is, and do the things that he wants to do, and some of that time is going to involve alcohol. She tells him that she doesn't mind if he drinks in front of her, but she's never going to partake. And it was after the date, he actually tells her, look, I was never prepared for that. It was going to be a big thing for me. And I don't think that with everything that's going on at uni and whatever, that I can actually be with someone like you. And that sucks because it's the first time we've seen Claire try and put herself out there with anyone outside of the group. And now it feels like she's up shit creek. However, when Felix says what he says about her being a fuck up, but he kind of likes that about her. She realises that Felix isn't just a little bit sleazy or whatever she thought of him before, or a bit weird, but actually he's a nice guy. He wanted to help her out when it came to the band, he wanted to help her out when it came to working there, and of course there's going to be employee-employer issues, but he's a nice guy, and I think it's time that Claire actually gave him a chance, because he does genuinely give a shit about her, and he won't judge her for who she is. He likes her for who she is, and that's probably what she should be looking for right now. Episode 6, Hard for Me to Say I'm Sorry. So other than a bit of comic relief from Muggsy, who ends up getting a bunch of mugs made by his kid, and obviously that is showing that he and his kids are getting along great. But he gets a mug for himself, but then he ends up getting a bunch of mugs for everyone else in the group, and they're all terrible. But the meaning behind them is really sweet. And then there's Ben, who ends up becoming a waiter in a restaurant, and he ends up trying to help the chef who's there, who just keeps getting yelled at, but he ends up putting his foot in it with the owner and ends up getting, a gun waved in his face. So, yeah, that's pretty much the only other storylines in this other than the main storyline, which is Loudermilk. Now, we're starting to see a real different side of Loudermilk now. So, after the night with Claire's mom, or the afternoon or whatever it was, like I said, they were listening to music. And if I didn't say that, I meant to. I can't remember everything, it's my podcast. So Loudermilk ends up hearing a familiar song from that night/afternoon with Claire's mom. And when he knocks on Claire's door, it turns out that Claire is listening to that album, but it's actually been sent to her by her mom on Spotify. And so Loudermilk's a little bit freaked out by this, because obviously that song reminds her, as in Claire's mom, of Loudermilk now, or at least the last time she got laid. So yeah, it's a little bit weird for him. However, when he actually goes back into the flat and starts thinking about the artist, it turns out she never actually had a second album. And the reason that she had the first album come to Loudermilk was because he was the critic at the time, and then he read the review that he'd done. It was an absolute hatchet job, and he gave her 0 out of 5, and she just couldn't take it. She ended up quitting the business, and according to Ben, she now runs a clothing store, second-hand clothes and jewellery and all that stuff. Loudermilk goes a little bit over the top in this episode, and some of his actions are questionable, but his heart's in the right place, because he tracks her down. He goes into her store, he acts like he's there for business, but actually he's kind of there to check her out, see what she's up to. He then follows her home. Again, like I've said, this isn't the best tact to use, but he follows her home. When he sees that she is living in what looks like an absolute shithole at the time, he begins to worry for her, and when he tells Ben this, Ben obviously says that it sounds creepy what you're doing. The next day, he walks past there again, and this time he hears a bunch of noise from inside, and literally the door to this place is tarpaulin. So he thinks that she's in trouble, and he runs in. However, it turns out that they're just flipping this house because it's her mother's house. They're trying to sell it, so they're literally tearing walls down and putting walls back up so that they can fucking turn it into something decent and sell it. I say them, it looks to be her and her partner. Now, I don't think that was verified, but anyway, Loudermilk essentially sticks his foot in it because now she's seen him 2 days in a row. She begins to question who he is and what he's doing there. He says, look, I was just passing, I go to the church down the road, and I run a group there, so I was just walking past, I heard commotion, I came inside, and it's just coincidence that it's you. We know it's not, because we know that he's seen her go into that house. So while he's there, he offers to help her out. It seems that they start to get along, and he ends up taking her to Felix's coffee place. They sit down, chat about stuff, and eventually Felix recognizes who she is. Because this coffee place is also a record store, he asks if she'll play. Like, he doesn't ask, he asks very aggressively and very... I'm not impressed with the way either Loudermilk or Felix act in this episode, because Felix is very aggressive towards her and he's like thrusting a guitar in her hand and just asking her to play a song. When she does, I mean, this woman is an actual singer who is in the show and she fucking nails it. She sounds amazing. But Loudermilk starts to realise like what he's done to her, because at this point, after she quit the business, she never picked up a guitar again. So to have one thrust into her hand like this, it's like, it's not good for her. She thought she'd left all that behind. Eventually, Felix lets loose that she sat next to Loudermilk and she just throws a coffee over him, because it was definitely the review that he wrote that ended up making her quit music. Once again, the next day, he goes and sees her and tries to explain and tries to say he's sorry, and that's all he's done so far. He's just tried to say he's sorry. And like I've said, that's admirable. The way he's gone about it is, quite frankly, kind of stalkerish. But the next time he tries to go and speak to her, she just won't see him at all. She reads out the review that he wrote and says, you were the reason that I did this. Like, I was just trying to make it in the business and you put out this review and everyone in the world could read it. And it just broke me. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it anymore. I sold my guitar and that was it. I decided to go into retail instead. And Loudermilk is just gutted about this because he knows how much potential she has now. Whether it's a taste in music change or whether it's just the fact that he was high and drunk most of the time that he was reviewing before, there's no excuse for what he did. If the music wasn't for him, then that's not on her. He could have wrote a decent enough review, but he didn't need to absolutely slate it like he did. But Loudermilk knows that he really needs to make this up to her, and so he manages to hunt down where her guitar went and eventually goes and buys it back. He then goes to see her. He doesn't say anything, he just hands her the guitar and leaves. And so, since she's a recurring character in this season, we can only assume that she's going to be in more episodes now. I did say that Tiger was going to be a recurring guest in the last episode as well, and I was wrong on that, so I apologise for that. But yeah, it seems that this woman, Lizzie, is going to be in more episodes going forward. Obviously, we've only got 4 left. Episode 7, Wind Beneath My Wings. And so now that she's doing this course at college for art, Claire really seems to be enjoying herself. But she's also getting honoured by her tutor for a piece of art that she's done. However, this piece of art involves Roger. She asks if he'll come to the event with her to actually unveil this piece of art, and she tells him that he's got an award there as well. He agrees and he goes along with her, but he doesn't understand what the award's for. Claire eventually tells him it's because of your drumming, but let's not forget Roger has this disability where his arms are shorter, and it seems that that is what they're honouring him for because he is quote-unquote brave, and it seems like they're just giving him an award because he is able to get around in the world. They're treating him differently because of his disability, and they really shouldn't, because he offers a lot more than just that. He's a good drummer, he's really funny, and he's incredibly intelligent, so that's not the way to treat someone like that. But he goes along anyway because it's going to stroke his ego. It seems that he's someone that needs that. When he gets there, he ends up absolutely killing it because he's obviously very good at telling stories. He seems to have really lived a life. And when he comes out, Claire's tutor's sister actually approaches him and says that she's a big fan of Roger and his work, and that she thinks that he should come along to an event that she's hosting the next night, where they are honouring the people of Seattle who they believe are brave. And once again, it's a bit of an addiction of Roger's, this one, and something that isn't harming him, and he just likes it when people acknowledge him, or at least celebrate him. So he tells them that he's definitely going to go along to this thing and that he'd be honoured to take their honour. He asks Loudermilk if he can come with him, and Claire gets a little bit offended by this because, well, it's not fair on Claire. She essentially arranged all this for him, and now it seems like her pictures become second fiddle to Roger. And now not only that, she's getting tossed aside for Loudermilk because Roger would prefer him to go than Claire. The rest of the crew have ended up going on a road trip. Ben, who shouldn't really be doing what he's doing, I think, as far as I'm concerned, because it is another addiction. He's currently playing online poker quite a lot, and since he's done so well at it, he has been entered into a tournament. Loudermilk obviously thinks that he's stupid for doing so, because he just thinks all you're going to do is lose, and all you're going to do is go to this place, this casino, and lose there instead of doing it at home. But he ignores what Loudermilk says, and he decides to go on the road with the boys, and they can make a road trip out of it. They keep referencing the hangover throughout the episode as if that's what their goal is to have, a hangover-style weekend without the actual drinking. But apparently the gambling is fine. Once again, Loudermilk runs a group for addictions, and yeah, they are going out and assisting Ben in his latest addiction. It's obviously not a good thing. However, when they're on the road, they end up breaking down, and it just ends up being a real shit show for them because Ben doesn't make his tournament, and in the end they just end up yelling at each other in the middle of this highway with no one else around them and just a broken down van. And it's kind of karma for them because, well, they shouldn't have been doing this anyway. They shouldn't have been feeding Ben's addiction. Back to Claire and Roger. So Roger ends up going to this red carpet event and having this award honoured to him. However, throughout, Loudermilk is just, he's being a dick again, he's being smug and he's being an arsehole. Every time that Roger seems enraptured by this whole event being held in his honour, Loudermilk just dismisses it and is very degrading of Roger's feelings. Roger knows what this event really is about. It's about him being different. It's not about him being brave. It's not about him getting over his addictions. It's because he's different. And when he walks on stage and he accepts the award, well, he doesn't accept the award. He tells them that he's not going to accept it. He knows that there's people backstage that actually do deserve it. He, however, doesn't feel that way. He says, I'm not brave. I'm not heroic. All I'm trying to do is live my life. All I'm trying to do is just get through the day. And that isn't brave or heroic. You are basically just doing this to make yourselves feel better. Giving an award to the disabled guy to make you feel better. make it look like you're doing something. And he understands the meaning behind it, and he knows they're not trying to be mean, but he feels like you're just doing this for you, not for me. And that isn't the way to go about this. And so he walks off. He and Claire end up having a heart-to-heart, and she basically says, look, I know that you don't feel brave. I know that you don't feel that you deserve that, but you deserved all of it. You deal with adversity every day, and every day it doesn't get any easier. You've done things and you do things that most people would find difficult. And if they were put into your situation, they'd find it just as difficult. Most wouldn't survive what you have. And she tells him that he's incredible, and that you can see that there's a bond between the two of them, and that they really care for each other, and that this group has really started to become a community. Okay, so let's talk about this last 4 episodes. They were really good. There was a lot of trepidation going into these next 4. After the first 3, like I've said at the beginning, the baby element, again, I'm not going to go over it again and again because it's just, it's annoying. But these last 4 episodes have sort of gone back to the core values of this show, and that is how to deal with other people in life, and how not to treat people differently even if they are different, and how to apologise to people if you've made a mistake. It's all about growth, and it's all about caring for others and not just yourself. Obviously, look after yourself, but where you can help others, help them. Where you can lift someone up, lift them up. Where you can make someone feel good, make them feel good, but just try. Try and be a good influence for people. And that's all this show's really telling you. Even with Loudermilk being a miserable twat at times, he really does care, and he really does try and look after the people that he hangs out with. And I think it's been a little bit heavy on storyline, but I'm enjoying where it's going. It's not too heavy that it's really weighing you down, but it's really making you think. And I think we've seen the characters mature together over the time together. I mean, Tony's still a dick. The new guy's still really annoying, but Muggsy's come a long way. Loudermilk's come a long way. Claire's come a long way. Ben has really done a lot of work for himself. You can see these people really developing and getting better. And I like that that's happening. But I'm gutted that there's only 3 episodes left. We can get into that soon enough. Next week, obviously, I will announce what I am covering in season 12. And I'm quite excited about what's coming, because I've obviously written the list, but I haven't refined the list yet. But there's some stuff that's coming up that I haven't looked at for a while, and they really make me happy, these shows. But yeah, going back to this, I did think it was just going to be the odd one shot at certain people when it came to Loudermilk, and that was going to be the thing that made me laugh. I didn't think the show would have as much heart as it does. And I'm grateful to the person that recommended this to me, because it's excellent, really funny, really heartwarming, and I just want to watch the next 3 episodes now. So I'm not going to do that. I'm obviously going to wait until I record again, and I'm not going to be covering Loudermilk now for another 2 weeks. But next week we're back into Mindhunter, and then it's Loudermilk, and then it's Mindhunter again to wrap up this season. Wrap up Loudermilk, wrap up Mindhunter, and then we're going to be doing new stuff. So I'm going to enjoy that as well. Anyway, I'm done for today. I'm rambling. So thank you for listening to me going on and on and on. Thank you for being here. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing. All your downloads are phenomenal. We passed 2 million recently, which is insane. I can't believe 2 million people have heard my voice, or at least I've been listened to 2 million times. That's crazy numbers. But it makes it worth it. Makes it worth doing this podcast. So I'm done. Thank you for listening. But until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome, and I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, Thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.